ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to WCHS Today. I'm your announcer, Tom, and Mike's guest tonight will be Rick Baker and a special viewer. And now, here he is, the man, the dude of the hour, Mr. Mike Hatfield.
Gee, yeah. Nobody applauded once there. Right. Jim, thanks for that wonderful introduction.
Yeah, hey. Came to the top of my head, yeah.
Yeah. Reading that off of a cue card there. Well, gee, it sure is great to be back, isn't it?
It's about a month now and a half.
Somebody's been using my desk. I wonder who. Probably the same person that fell asleep on the couch only minutes before the show, Eric Brown. So, Jim, what's been happening lately for you?
Well, my Friday Night Live is tomorrow night, a special musical show.
And what time would that be?
That would be at 7:30. Doors open at 7 in our West Gym, which is our girls' gym.
Discrimination. You notice that the girls' gym is smaller than the boys' gym.
Oh,
right. Go ahead. Go ahead, Jim.
Students' cost is $1, and grown-ups is $2. Yeah, and $2. Then any person under 6 is free. So if you want to have a nursery class that wants to come see the show.
And is the activity pass valid?
Activity pass is non-valid.
Non-valid, so you got to pay for this.
Yes, you do.
Unless, of course, we come to say we're taping the event and bring like 12 or 15 people with us.
People yet?
Yeah, I think we do. We do have a person taping it. Our very own John Fieser.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Andy Kerr. I guess Andy is, and he just wanted to get his name said. Well, we have a great show lined up tonight. We have Rick Baker, a freelance writer for the Peoria Journal-Star, and we have a very avid fan of WCHS Today, probably one of the few in Washington. It's Sean Dagenhart from Mrs. Hatfield's 4th grade class. Fifth grade? You're in 5th grade, but you were probably in my mom's 4th grade class, weren't you? And you probably watched it last year too, huh? But you probably think it's better this year because I'm hosting, right? Boy, this is great. I love this. Okay, here we go. Marker. No, if we don't have the marker. Be here in just a second. Oh, throw that. Ooh. That's a ballpoint pen. Doesn't look like a marker to me. Quick. And who says we're not prepared?
There is no marker.
Little traveling music. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now experiencing technical difficulties.
We have no marker.
Ah. Thank you. A big round of applause for Mrs. Hatfield, huh? Great. Good. 2 markers. Great. Jim, why don't you go ahead and stand over here and write. Well, Sean, why don't you come up here real quick? Great. Now, what would you have in this bag, Sean? Why don't you turn to the camera? This is Sean Dagenhart.
French fries.
Hamburgers and French fries. Now, these are McDonald's hamburgers and French fries, right? They're not?
No.
They're Harold's hamburgers, huh? Why? What a coincidence. Didn't Mrs. Hatfield's 4th grade class go to Harold's Hamburgers today at lunch? Right. So did you go with them?
No.
No, because you're in 5th grade. Well, we'd really like to thank you for watching the show. You do watch it like every night, don't you? And you watch the reruns then on Monday? So you watch it twice then?
Sometimes.
Sometimes twice. Well, I tell you what, why don't you tell your teacher they shouldn't give you any homework on Thursdays and Mondays, and tell them that you know it should be good that you watch the show. You should tell them to watch the show too. Tell your teacher. Who is your teacher?
Mrs. Dedecker right now, but my teacher had her baby, and so she's not back yet.
So I take it your teacher then is a woman.
Uh-huh.
Okay, that's good. Okay. Thanks a lot for coming on, Sean. Big round of applause, huh? Food. Optical illusion. Sound effects. Okay, here we go. Food. Gee, I'd have to say SHAWN. DEGEN. I'm sure. HART. Sean Dagenhart. Well, one more time, a big round of applause for Sean.
Yeah.
Gotta put this in the microwave there. Nice to have a microwave built into the desk. Ooh, gee. Don't have the school box out either. So, next week is the last show.
Yeah!
Stop crying. Come on, get them a napkin quick. No, it's the last show, and we intend to have billions and billions of very good guests. They're going to be coming from all around the central Illinois area. We have some flying in from across the four corners of the world. It's going to be a regular hour bonanza, and we're going to show scenes from weeks and months and years before. And, well, basically, it's going to be a lot of fun for everybody. Right, Jim?
Right.
Right, Jim. Okay, thanks a lot, Jim. Great. And we're going to have a band next week. We'd like to apologize for the band we've had these last couple weeks.
They've sounded great.
They really have, though. They really have. It's nice to have
like Survivor, yeah.
Right, Survivor in concert here. Unfortunately, they just packed up and left before we started the camera, so you can't see them. But, we really would like to thank you for coming tonight. Anyhow, let's get on to the show, because I know I'm probably boring you all to death, right? Somebody want to wake them up for me? Without any further ado, I guess we could bring on the guest tonight. What do you think?
Yeah.
Okay, hey, great. Ladies and gentlemen, people of the press, dignified people, Mr. Rick Baker, freelance writer for the Peoria Journal-Star.
Hi. Who's Nickel?
Yeah. Oh, somebody lost a nickel on the couch. It's probably the person who fell asleep. Pretty nice. Anything else on there, like a comb or a wallet or anything? No.
Lovely furniture.
Thank you. It shows up on the camera pretty good usually.
Early suppression.
Yeah. We found it out in the garbage out there, but we cleaned it up first, don't worry. So, how long have you been involved in journalism?
About 15, 16 years now.
15, 16
Yeah,
years?
since I was 19.
Since you're 19. Add that up real quick. No,
Yeah,
just
34.
34.
Yeah, 15. 15 years.
Okay, and how did you start writing? For
Well,
what?
I started, I took over the local newspaper in the little town where I lived when I was 19. It was a weekly in the town, a little McLean County town. And I did that for a couple of years and then went on to dailies. Went to a daily in Bloomington for 5 years and been at the Journal-Star now 7 years.
Okay, and what did you start writing when you started at the Journal-Star? Were you writing a column then?
No, I was a general assignment reporter for a few months and then I became a columnist.
Okay, what would you call the type of writing you do, the column?
People have come up with all different kind of names.
Now, how many
I just call
can
it
you actually
nice.
say?
I think it's nice stuff.
Well, I mean, it's not really, it's not an editorial, really. It's
No,
not.
it's kind of a combination of investigative journalism, editorials, and just hard news, and some humor, some satire. Not a whole lot, but occasionally.
Okay, you were writing for the Journal-Star for, you said, like, what, 7 years?
You're right.
Okay, what happened recently now? You're writing as a freelance reporter
Right.
for the Journal-Star.
I quit.
Okay, moving on to the next one. Why would you
People
moved away
have
from
come
it?
up to me and says, "Geez, we're sorry to hear you were fired," but I wasn't. I just quit.
Okay, well,
No, I quit because I belonged to a union that I didn't think was very straightforward, and I couldn't get along with some of the things they wanted to do. And it's a closed shop up there. If you're in that newsroom, you've got to belong to the union. And I just, I would write stories about people who weren't doing things half as bad as what I thought the union was doing. And so I just quit. I just couldn't morally justify being involved in that.
so you felt that you couldn't write about things that were happening out in the public if they're happening in your own.
That, and I just, I think the union I was in didn't encourage. Their attitude seemed bad. It's let's make all the money we can and go home. I'm more interested in journalism than I am in union activities.
Now, have you ever thought about maybe branching off in television, radio, anything like that, or are you pretty much set with journalism?
Well, I've done some television, but writing is what I like to do best. I really enjoy that. I've thought about branching off into writing books and that kind of thing, but I think I'm going to stick with writing.
But you have written a couple novels, right?
Yeah, a couple of novels and a nonfiction book.
Mm-hmm. But you haven't got it published?
No, I haven't really tried that hard yet. I figure once I get to be about 35, I'll realize I better do something real.
Well, I mean, you still got those, so I mean,
Oh,
you
yeah.
think you're gonna?
Oh yeah, I think
You'll do something with them later?
Sure.
And are you gonna write some more? Do you think?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, how do you find out about, like, okay, you've done investigative reporting, and well, okay, some of the things that are happening lately. The boy that escaped from what, jail, I guess, from a police officer at in Peoria.
Right. Yeah, he was, I think, up on murder. One of his relatives called me and wanted to talk to me about it, and thought maybe I could help. But a lot of it is people see me in a way as a last resort to solve problems that they're wrapped up in a bureaucracy that won't solve them, and occasionally they're right. Occasionally I can do some good for them. A lot of times I can't.
Okay, now you've gotten, I just read one of your articles a while ago about the Bradley University students. And
the professors who can't speak English.
Right.
Yeah.
Positive, negative.
Yeah. Fella he said he was paying $6,000 a year to go to the school, and he can't understand his professors. He said, he's deciphered his math professor in a degree, and if the number's over 0, it's positive, and if it's under 0, it's negative. But he said that's about all he could understand.
Okay, while we're on the subject of schooling, how many years of college did you have to go to, and where'd you go to learn to be a journalist?
I didn't go to college.
So, catch on the next one. Okay.
I think I'm the only one up, or was the only one up there who didn't go to college. It's kind of required in journalism anymore that you have a college degree, and it was when I was hired there. I think when I was hired there, they had a rule that you don't hire people without a college degree.
So how did that play along with you getting employment there then?
Well, they realized the error of their ways and hired me. I'd pretty well proven myself before I got there. I'd won AP awards, UPI awards, that kind of thing.
And this came from your previous years as being editor?
Right, and at the Pantograph. And I think newspapers are nice in that you don't have to prove yourself a lot with an educational background. You've got, you can say, this is what I've done. I've done this. And you've got it right there on paper. And I think they can realize that. But anymore, I haven't seen anybody without a degree hired since I was there, and that's 7 years, and they hire a lot of people.
Okay, now you said you won some awards. You won AP, UPI. What other kind of awards have you won for your writings?
There's a magazine called the Columbia Journalism Review, which is kind of the Bible of journalism, and I won a laurel for that. They give papers laurels and darts. I mean, if you screw up, they give you a dart. If you get a laurel, it's kind of a prized thing. It's it didn't mean anything to me at the time I won it because I really didn't know what it was. But once people started telling me what it was, I thought it was kind of a big deal.
Okay, well, by reading some of your articles, you have the potential, like, to write in a big city. Have you ever thought of moving to another city to write for, like,
I thought of it. In fact,
Times
when
or
I
anything like that?
first quit the Journal-Star, I was looking pretty hard at Chicago, and then I went up and talked to the Tribune and the folks up there, and they're real nice, but I live down here. I'm from Central Illinois. I live in Eureka. My wife writes for the Journal-Star. My kids go to school in Eureka. And I can write as well around here as I can write anywhere. The money doesn't really mean that much to me, and I don't think the money would be that much different in Chicago.
Do you think maybe you'd have a bigger assortment, though, if you're in Chicago, of a lot more things you could write about?
There's more people, but there's plenty to write about down here. I seem to be in a position where I can't get to everything I've got to write about, so I've got plenty to select from.
Okay, now, your sources, do you go out to people, or do they come to you to write the article?
Well, a lot of it is people calling me, and they're in positions of authority or in a certain situation where they can't have their names be known, but they can give me information where I can go check it out and that kind of thing. And that works out a lot of times.
Okay, you've got some of the things you're working on now. You're working on arsenic in the water.
Yeah, I was down in Tazewell County all day long. A little girl got sick from, her mother thought maybe she was eating lead paint off the windowsills. They've got an older house, and so she took her daughter to the doctor because she'd been acting kind of strange, and they had tests, and it turns out she's got a dangerous amount of arsenic in her system. And they tested everything they could, and they wound up testing the water, and it's poison. It's got arsenic in it. And they started testing other wells down there the other day, and it seems like a lot of them are poisonous. So they're looking at a landfill where Caterpillar had dumped a lot of arsenic-laden sludge, and they think, although everybody seems to deny it, they think that it may have seeped down into the water system for a pretty big area of Tazewell County. And that's kind of stuff that you don't want to be drinking.
No.
Arsenic.
No, not too good.
Yeah.
Okay, some of the other articles you wrote, like, you wrote about the boxing. How'd you find out about that now? Did they call you the boxer sergeant?
Oh, well, a lot of the stories I get are developed from little stories that I think could be good stories that aren't really looked into a lot. That one came on a news release from the state of Illinois. They list everybody they've suspended for certain licenses, like dentists. There was a dentist here in Eureka that was suspended recently for funneling drugs to his wife.
Nice.
Over here in Washington. And
hope it isn't mine.
well, I don't know.
I've been feeling weird every time I go there.
They list all these suspensions, and I just saw this one where a boxer was suspended. Usually they're doctors or dentists or real estate people, and I thought it was kind of odd, so I just looked into it. It was a little two-line thing. It turned out to be kind of a neat story, I thought.
Mm-hmm. You had Paul King, the editor from...
Yeah, I quoted him, yeah. Yeah, it was a story of a boxer who just couldn't fight in front of crowds. He was a pretty good boxer when he was at home, but then he'd go in front of crowds away and they'd boo him. He'd just kind of freak out. And everybody thought he was throwing fights. He wasn't. He was just scared.
Well, do you think he's going to get back into boxing?
I wouldn't if I were him. I mean, if you can't fight before crowds, you got a problem.
Well, I mean,
maybe get back into shadow boxing or something.
Yeah, I might have to try that sometime. Well, I mean, by looking at the article, it looks like, they pretty much labeled him now. And
yeah, nobody wants to fight him because, he said, a reporter egged him on to say it, that he threw the fight. Well, I don't think he did. But now, no fighter wants to fight a guy like that because he'll say, well, I threw the fight. He makes the other boxer look like I really didn't beat him. So who wants to fight him? Not very many people.
Okay, do you have any, big future stories you can let us in on, anything?
No, I pretty much work day to day. I don't, I don't have a buildup of stories. If, I write a column and it gets in, then I go into another one.
So, how long do you spend on each one usually?
It depends. Sometimes it's 3 weeks, sometimes it's 3 hours. I've spent 3 weeks on a story. I've spent 6 weeks on one story, and I've spent a year on one story that developed into a book. But usually it's 2 or 3 days.
And what was that story about that went into the book?
Oh, it was a story on a older gal who died in the Bartonville State Hospital, the asylum over there, after 50 years in there. Mm-hmm. And that was a story that started out as an obituary. It was about that long, and they called the woman Mary Doefor. And the mortician said, we don't know her real name, we don't know where she's really from, we don't know who she is, and she's been in here for 50 years, and we don't know anything about her. I thought, everybody's got to be somebody. This could be an intriguing story. And so spent a year tracking down just who she was and what had happened to her, and she wound up being a school teacher from Iowa, who an third grade school teacher, I believe, who was picked up one day in the late 20s, I believe, late 1920s, picked up and molested and beaten up and dumped outside of a car outside of Chicago, and as a result of being beaten up, she couldn't remember who she was. So the police couldn't figure out what to do with her, and they wound up putting her in an asylum for the criminally insane. And she stayed there for 50 years. They put her on a back ward and was forgotten. And 50 years later, she died without anybody ever giving a good attempt to find out who she was. When I got the obituary, I did a story on it and talked to everybody who knew her. And at the end, I guess they did know she had been a school teacher at one time, but by the time she died, she'd been given so many shock treatments and a lobotomy and everything else that she couldn't even think. And did a story, and it ran in the Chicago Tribune, and with my name on it, and somebody saw that in Michigan, and the Sun said that, a woman of that description 50 years ago disappeared from this little town in Iowa. And it's kind of a slim lead, but I followed it up, and the more that I checked it out, the more I was convinced it was her. And it was a long, detailed investigation, but we got the anthropologist involved who did the reconstruction of the bodies of the Gacy victims, and got x-rays out of hospitals of her, and I found her brother, and he was going to come back and claim the body. They had a year to find out who she was before they buried her. Well, she was cremated, and they were going to bury her anonymously after a year. Well, we finally found the brother, and we sued the state of Illinois for more records. They wouldn't give us the records because they said, we can't give you records of people who've been in the hospital. But we had to get the records to try to prove who she was, and we sued the state and won. And they were going to turn the records over to her brother, and he was going to come down to Peoria and look at them, and we were going to have her buried. And the week before he was going to come down and do it, he died of a heart attack. So she's buried anonymously over in Morton now.
Pretty bad ending for it.
Yeah, it was.
Sounds like it was working out pretty good there. How'd you get your article in the, you said the Chicago Tribune?
Yeah.
Have you written for them before then? Or?
No, the Associated Press moves stories I write sometimes. You know, and they go all that story went all over the country. It
Really?
was in California, yeah. Yeah, the AP moves them, and sometimes they put my byline on them. I wrote a story on an old fellow up here in Warspern who's going to be buried in a Cubs uniform, and because he's a Cubs fanatic, and he'd made plans with the mortician to be buried in the Cubs uniform. And the Journal-Star put it in the back page, and I was out in Denver and picked up a copy of the Denver Post, and it's on across the top of the front page in the Denver Post. So,
Right. And then the front page. And,
yeah.
Well, are there any other big things you're working on right now? You said you're going to put off the books for a while and get into them a little later.
Yeah, well, the column takes up most of my time, the day-to-day writing of the column. I mean, I investigate a lot of stuff that doesn't turn out, and so you waste a lot of time doing something like this, but sometimes it pays off.
Do you ever wish you had moved into a different field or anything?
Yeah, I wish I'd become a baseball player. Yeah, that's what I wanted to be when I was a kid.
Well, I mean, it seems like you do a lot of investigative reporting. Don't you think it might be kind of neat to be like a detective or anything like that?
That's kind of a lot of what I
Following up on the
do.
leads.
When I left the Journal-Star, I thought about doing some of that, but a lot of that is pretty drudge work. I mean, you're looking into divorces and insurance things and stuff like that. Most interesting detective work is done by government detectives, county sheriff's detectives or city police detectives, and that involves a lot of drudge work too. This is nice because I can kind of pick and choose what I want to look into.
Get the interesting ones.
And if it's boring, I think, well, I'm going to do that. People won't want to read it.
So if people have got problems, then they can pretty much look to you. Maybe if it's going to be something that you think you can help them out with.
Yeah, except for certain areas like divorces or back problems, things like that. I just don't get into. I get a lot of calls from people saying, "You won't believe what my husband did," and I say, "I don't hear about it." I just don't do that kind of thing.
What other kind of things don't you really feel that you really want to get into?
A lot of people with car problems. Everybody's got car problems.
Gardening tips.
Oh yeah, I bought this. My carburetor doesn't work. So what? I have that problem every day. I don't call a newspaper about it.
Any things you do think are very interesting? You like to write about them?
The government messing up. I love that.
That's a good. And boy, doesn't that happen a
Yeah,
lot.
I seem to do it a lot. Yeah.
They're getting pretty good at it too, though.
Real pros.
There goes the tape. It's gonna stop now. Something's gonna happen. The television station's gonna go off the air down there. These government men in blue suits are gonna come on. He disappeared last night. I don't know where he went. His teddy bear was gone too. But but you think you're going to stay in journalism then? You don't really want to.
Well, I'm going to write. I don't know if it's going to be in journalism for all my life, but that's what I want to do is write, and I've always wanted to do that. I grew up wanting to do that, and I grew up reading all the time. I grew up in a house without a TV set. I lived in Europe for 8 years, and they didn't have TV sets when I was there, and so you read, and was really encouraged to read, and I fairly well read.
When were you in Europe now?
From 61 to 69. I grew up. I went all through school in Europe, pretty much.
No, why were you there? Did your family move there?
No, my father was an Army officer.
Really?
Yeah, who didn't want to come back for quite a while. So I guess he liked the beer. Good beer over there. So
that makes a good reason to stay.
Yeah.
So you went through grade school there? Or what would be equivalent to grade school?
Yeah, well, it was an American school.
Was it?
The same thing, yeah. Same thing as here.
Okay, and then you came back, and then you went to write. about a couple years after that, you started for the Pantograph.
I came back and drove a gravel truck and thought, man, this is a drag. I got to find something easier than this. So I went into journalism.
Easier than that.
Yeah.
No, but you said it's a lot easier, you think, to write for the newspaper than you think to get involved in television.
Well, I don't know if it's easier. I think it's more productive news-wise. I mean, I can be more productive news-wise in a newspaper than I can on television, because television, to tell a 2-minute story, will take a lot of times 5 hours of work.
Mm-hmm.
Where I can sit down and write the story in a half an hour. But to get all the cameras right and to travel to the place and get pictures of this and that, I did a half-hour TV show a while back, and I found that to do a half-hour TV show was taking me a week to do it well, to try to do it well, and a half hour isn't worth that much. I mean, I'm not going to give up my whole week for a half-hour show. So
what show was this you were doing?
I did a kind of a little magazine for 19. I only did one of them. It was a half-hour kind of 60 minutes thing, and I agreed to try it out on a experimental basis, and I found out that
didn't work after the first week.
Yeah, it worked. I could have made it work. I just didn't want to dedicate that much time to it, and compared to what TV wants to pay compared to what newspapers want to pay is,
Stick with newspaper.
I think a lot of TV people get paid in ego trips. You're on TV, whereas I don't.
Well, you get your picture next to your article.
Well,
sometime.
yeah, right. Well, all the time I do, but when you're on TV, your mouth moves.
No, I think that makes it all worthwhile, doesn't it? Unless you talk like this. That's kind of bad, though. No, yeah, I do that every once in a while just to mess people up. Really like to thank you for coming on tonight.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's been a
and well, we got the last show. I'm sure you're going to watch the last show, right? You'll have to drive back into Washington to pick it up on.
Yeah, tonight's the first night I knew the show existed, but I'll watch it from now on. Keep having guests like me.
Like many other people in Washington. You can't look at you. WCHS Today, what's that? But I'm sure you're going to tell all your friends about it now, and they'll be...
Well, since I left, I don't have any more friends.
Oh, darn. One more thing before we close here. The article that was in there, I guess, a couple weeks ago about the doctor from Bloomington that had a small disagreement with his wife, I guess, and he dismembered her and then put her in a food processor, right?
Yeah, I didn't do that article. He was from Galesburg, and he dismembered her and put her, I think, her vital organs in a food processor. And he took the food processor back and said his wife didn't like it. I think our appliance editor wrote that.
There's going to be a great review of that product. No, nobody got a food processor for Christmas or anything, did they? This Christmas season. Andy did, yeah. Great, Andy. It makes great shakes, too, huh?
Yeah, all the straight pests in the neighborhood are going.
There go my gerbils. Okay, well, we'd really like to thank you for coming on tonight.
Thank you.
We learned a lot here, and I know I'm going to read your...
I bet you did.
We learned a lot of articles now. I'm going to start reading those a lot more. But we'd like to thank you for coming on and wish you a lot of luck in writing your novels. If you can get some of those going, I'm sure they'll be bestsellers, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
So thanks a lot for coming on. And everybody tune in next week, next Thursday, 8 o'clock, same time, same channel, the last WCHS Today, something you've been waiting for the entire year. Featuring clips and segments from many a year ago. And Mr. Woodward's telling me to stop right now, so I guess I better wrap things up. And let's go right now to our live band performances. They're going to play Mission Impossible. Thank you and good night. Have a nice week.